Hello, everybody in the Buddy Fight world. This is Daybreak Flare, aka Kevin Al, aka the People's Hero, coming back to you today. And today I am bringing you a deck list on Omni Dark Hero. Surprisingly enough, a lot of people have not heard of this being a thing. I've made several hints about it in a few cases, especially on the recent live chat that we had for the North America Future Card Buddy Fight page. I mentioned it a few times and we were talking about it for a little while and how this new Omni Mukuro over here does not need to exist because it broke a card, and I will get into that later. But without further ado, I'm just going to get into the deck list. It is again Omnilord.Dek. Wow. Omnilord Dark Hero. Alright, so, this is Mukuro.Dek, so I have the nice Mukuro flag over here. And so to start, we have 4 of this Mukuro, and then we have 4 of this Mukuro, 4 of that one, and 4 of the new one. No, I swear, I'm kidding. Guys, don't take me seriously. That was a joke. You don't play literally any of these new ones in this specific build. At most, you maybe play one of him if you only wanted to, but he is not necessary. They're not necessary. You do not play this. This was a joke. Hope y'all got a laugh out of that. I mean, I did, because, a lot of people hear Omnilord's Dark Hero. Oh, it's just Mukuro, right? And I'm like, no. I don't see why everybody knows that, you can mix Dungeon World with Omnilords, but it doesn't work with Hero World. The whole reason why I came up with this deck was because we have 4 of him. He's a Hero World card. He's what enables, the majority of the plays in the deck. For those of you who don't know, he is a 625, size 2, 1 gauge to transform, 1 gauge to call, and at the beginning, I'm going to read this just to make sure I'm giving you accurate information again, but I'm pretty sure I know what it does. At the beginning of each player's attack phase, call one Omnilord, up to 1 Omnilord or Dark Hero from your hand by paying the call cost. That card becomes size 0 until it leaves the field and has built-in double attack. So, he calls an Omnilord from your hand, he calls a Dark Hero from your hand, and they become size 0, and this happens when both players enter their battle phase. So it goes enter battle phase, move, activate effect, get a free call. Who doesn't like counter-calling Tenbu on your opponent's battle phase? Or, reaping mad benefits from passive spell gain. I'll get a lot more in depth in how this deck works, but just realize that he's the card that literally makes this deck possible. And he's kind of broken. Next up, we have 2 copies of Demon Assassin Zyogre. Zyogre is a thing. This deck needs Dark Hero names because it is basically a Dark Hero core. You could run any other size 0 Dark Hero. You can run Kill Knight, you can run Sniper Guy, you could run... something else. You could even run size 1s if you want. I just like size 0 Zyogres because they have a lot of utility in the deck. Next up, we have 4 SD Shores. If you're playing a Dark Hero deck and his Dark Hero core, you need SD Shores. He recurs himself, he bounces back to hand. Same with Zyogre, by the way. Zyogre returns himself to the hand, and he has the cheaper cost. Basically, you just have to have an item equipped, whereas the other ones require you, like Sniper and Kill Knight. They need you to have a Dark Hero item. I mean, it doesn't make a difference in this deck, but, things can happen. I just feel comfortable doing that. And yeah, SD Shores, you can pitch a Dark Hero to gain 2 gauge. You don't do that very often, but it's nice to have the utility. He is one of the key cards of the deck as well, I guess you could say, just because he gets your engine going. This is something I'm doing in testing. I'm doing 2 Braidens. Braiden is a super duper good card. This deck is just basically putting good cards that shouldn't exist together with more good cards that shouldn't exist. You pay 1 gauge to call him during... Well, it's a counter timing. You destroy a monster with 6,000 or less defense? Defense on your opponent's field when he enters the board. And when either player enters final phase, he goes back to your hand. So he's another counter called Dark Hero that recurs. And he gets a free pop. He could become a pseudo shield. The deck doesn't run a lot of shields, to be completely honest with you, but a lot of it is basically good utility because, like, you can just Mukuro out a monster into the center and then you have another shield. And, yeah, some combos more to come later in the deck list. Going into the Omnilords, this is where the deck gets really spicy and debatable. I play 1 of the Super New Countdown. At the beginning of either player's battle phase, if he's in your drop zone, you can pay 1 life to call him to the field. And he basically gives something a free life if he doesn't get attacked first. So if a card would leave your field, you can send him to the drop zone instead of that card. Yeah. He's really good. I don't use him a lot. He's basically there for combos if he can ever pull it off, and he's a nice free monster that thing. And life is definitely not an issue in this deck, if any of you are wondering. You'll see why when you get to the spells. There's one Fist Lord Burn Nova. Has triple attack, cost 2 gauge. He's the better of the Burn Novas, in my opinion. Like, the deck has room for... Or the deck could have room for original Burn Nova, but I almost never see myself going into range of ever needing him. Because either you, like, outright lose, or you outright win, or you manage to steal a win because of something like him having, you know, triple attack. And, yeah. And when you call him during your opponent's turn, which is his counter ability, you pay 2 gauge, call him during your opponent's turn. If you have 5 or less life, you gain 3 life, which is what makes him really good in comparison to the original Burn Nova. Original Burn Nova, you just have to die, and you lose your entire board. I play 2 Edgelord Mega Balls. I don't like this one, the new one. I don't think I need either of them because, like, I very rarely end up calling them and using them to their full extent outside of, like, you know, making them a chump, because all the other Omnilords in this deck are so freaking strong and they combo so well, but they're there for the sake of, you know, they're Omnilords. There are a lot of matchups where they can come in handy. Like, this thing destroys dual golems, it eats them alive. This is just good for all-around decks and stuff, but, you know, I don't see a lot of play with them. I consider siding them out a lot when I get to the matchups if they don't help. Yeah, not much to say on those. They're just really good cards, so they're in the deck, like I said. Lots of good cards put together. 2 Omni dies. One is Dogged, one is Inverse Omni die. Basically, they both have their purpose of free advantage and finding cards. Because you have an ideal transform and you have cards that gain passive advantage, aka the Dark Hero hideouts. Spoilers. You want to find the best ways to capitalize off of them. So Inverse Omni dies for your hideouts, and Dog is to search for your Mukuro if you still haven't seen it for some odd reason. Trust me, it happens. But yeah. Sometimes, like, my opponent will be bad, and they'll kill this, I'll mill a Mukuro, and I won't have a Mukuro on the board, and they'll put it on the side, and it'll be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go for your face. And I was like, really? And they go, yeah, face is the place. And I go, hey, look, I can transform into Mukuro now. Drums. Play 1 SD drum, one of the new Roaring Sky Omnilord guy. So, why does he have double attack? Why? Tell me. Deck of good cards that shouldn't exist together. 2 gauge, top card into soul. Has double attack. When you take a damage, you destroy a card on your opponent's field. Destroy a monster or a card? Monster, I believe. Destroy a monster and gain 1 life. Yeah, okay. So this is pay 1 life. Counter take 1 damage. Not pay a life, take a damage. Then put the top card of your deck into the soul of a card on the field. So if you have these two, you basically have like a free soul going. Sorry, I have my really crappy tripod set up again. It's standing on boxes facing downward at my playmat. But yeah, that's a thing. These two combo together. There's also more stuff he combos with, like these. This new Tenbu over here, and this is the Elder Tenbu from that secret pack where he's only like a $2 card. This is a really good Tenbu because it nullifies effects and destroys a monster. So I face a lot of decks that use Soul Guard. And basically when your opponent goes enter battle phase, you go activate Mukuro skill, pay 2 gauge, call Tenbu, nullify your Soul Guard, destroy a monster, and then they lose their commitment for the turn. That's one example. And this Tenbu is 2 gauge, put it on top of a monster on your field. And then when it enters the field, or when you take damage, you blow up their monsters. Why this Tenbu is a 7/3/7 with double attack, and board nuking escapes me. Good cards with other good cards that shouldn't exist, right? Like this is a very, very heavy jump. Like this is a very big jump into near broken in my opinion, and it really does its job really well because it forces your opponent to commit resources to attacking it. And like I said, if you have this and that, or if your opponent just like doesn't expect either of these to come out for some reason, when you have, you know, this and you go, are you sure you want to call 3 monsters and then go into battle? This game, you know, it's beyond me. I'm not gonna judge. Like I said, I build things, I play things, I just do things because I can. Next up we have 2 Miserias. Life gain, aggro. Funny enough, this gets milled, or like I don't see it because it gets gauged way more often than I'd like, but this is technically an alt win condition. If you don't know what it does, I'm surprised, but if you have 4 or more Omnilords in your drop zone when you enter final phase, it stands, and if you have 8 or more, it gains double attack for that final phase and can attack for final phase. So you basically steal free 6 crit off of this card in one, like when you play it. But they're both really solid cards. You can't really play an Omnilord deck without these, I think, because they're just so good. This is good sustain. This is good aggro potential. But then again, Omnis are all subjective. You can play whatever you want. And then my final set of Omnilords. This is the Spice. This is the Edge. Not really. You all see this coming, but it's Zeuns. So I play 1 Inverse, I play 1 Tumultuous, and 1 Freakrist. So Freakrist is one of the other win conditions of the deck. He's one of the things I first thought of when I went straight into making this deck. And basically, he reduces himself by 1 size. He gains 3 power and 1 crit for every Omnilord besides himself, or any size 1 or lower besides himself. So he basically maxes out at 12-5-1 with Soul Guard and Penetrate, and he has no consent on him as well, which means the opponent can't counter when he attacks, and this steals a lot of games. This also, you know, it's a Zeun. The other one's another Zeun. This one is not as powerful, but it's because he has the 4 crit, and he has no consent on a nice 1 gauge, 1 life package. You can pay a gauge to give him +2 power and penetrate, but that's never really the case because the center is going to be opened up really easily. And then there's also, you know, Inverzeun. Inverzeun is a thing I added into the deck recently after doing some refining and a lot of playtesting, and he actually ends up stealing games as well, which is really nice, and he can catch your opponent off guard if they're being bad. I'm going to say being bad because, like, I was in testing and I put in, you know, Inverzeun, and I go, attack with Zeun, and he goes, I can consent to that. And I'm like, for now you can. And my opponent was, cool, for now? Okay. And then he nullifies it, and I counter with his ability. In the end, he's really just 1 gauge for a big scary thing. 2 gauge for a big scary thing, but, you know, if your opponent thinks they'll sit... Yeah, I don't know. He's just really good. Another really good card to have. He's just good beating. A lot of this deck likes to have big hits happen as fast as possible because we play impacts, and we play a slightly grindy game, which means that the deck can burn out or over-resource really easily if you're not controlling what you're doing. New tech for the impacts. Rampage Heat, or Rampage Blaster Red Heat. This is new. This came out in the Solar Strife? Yeah, it came out in Solar Strife. And there's a funny thing about this card. It basically says if your opponent has... It's supposed to be if your opponent has 5 or less life, not if you have 5 life or less and you're transformed into a card. So Mukuro has Transform, right? Right there, he has Transform. So you transform into... You're always transformed into Mukuro. You get your opponent to 5, which Freakrist can do very friggin' easily. And you pay 2 gauge, and basically you hit them for 2, that's unstoppable. And then you ping them for 1, +1 damage. Plus the number of monster cards destroy your card... The number of monsters your cards destroyed this turn, and the damage can't be reduced. Right? So if you say, you know, main phase 10 Boother Field, enter battle phase 10 Boother Field, you destroy like 3 monsters, you play... You Zeun them, and then you play that and you win. Obviously, that's like one of the dream situations. But the thing is, like, the fact that this is 2 unstoppable damage and it also adds on top of it, even if you just kill by battle, is really friggin' strong. And it makes this makes the deck a lot more viable in terms of aggro potential and stealing wins. I used to play Menjos, like Mill 5 Menjos, and they just brick. They brick so hard. They ping my opponent for 1, waste my gauge, and waste my board, and then I'd be like, well, I'm gonna die now. Or at least I'm in a worse off position. And this is really solid, because it fixes the problem that the deck kind of had, where it needed solid finishers, where you have unstoppable damage now and such. I'm gonna move on to the spells. There's not a lot to say about stuff in here. Like I said, deck is a bunch of good cards put together. For hypers, you're playing Hero World. This is a deck that has a lot of high cost monsters. A lot of your Omnilords are 2 gauge, like the Asmodeis, Tenbu, Drum. It's mandatory. It's kind of common sense to me because I play a lot of Hero World. But for those of you who don't know, Hyper Energy is gauge 4, so you want to have consistent gauge, and you want that initial 4 gauge at the first turn, and then you kind of want another one late game depending on how it's going. Anyway, you feel it out. 3, I've seen 3 removes. I only play 3 because the deck has a lot of ways to circumvent not having shields, aka this guy, and it has a lot of anti-pen and life gain. You know, you have your Braidens, and you have the edgy techs that are your Dark Hero hideouts, and you have Benefit. This is my favorite card in the deck, besides Mukuro and Zeun. So basically, Oh, well, I forgot to mention that with Freak Wrist, the new Ziyun, right? Your Mukuro calls everything out as a size 0 if you call it by his effect. So basically he triggers off of anything that you can call in his deck, which gives him a Freak plus crit. I feel like that's necessary to mention because I didn't mention that because I got caught up in thing. This is not scripted. I do everything off the top of my head just because I'm not a professional video, YouTuber or anything. But yeah, Benefit is my favorite card in the deck because basically you get so many value plays out of it. So you can basically anything that you call off of him becomes benefit fodder, which means you can get a free 2 shields technically because you gain the 2 life out of benefit and you get the 1 attack with. The life gain is good because it helps off-put stuff like taking lifelink from the Omni dies. Excuse me. You prevent taking you circumvent taking lifelink, or you even out, and then basically just because like everything in the deck ends up becoming a 1 or 0 and it's just free. It's free, and there are some very rare occasions where you have to like you could like call Dawn from the drop zone in the middle, or you go Shores and then you put something in the soul, like you put Zyogre in the soul, which is one of the reasons why I play Zyogre, and then you go attack, bounce, Zyogre comes out, and then let's say they try and rest it or something, you can benefit off the center monster, you benefit off the Dawn, and then you gain back the life you paid for the Dawn, you get a free gauge, yada yada yada. It's a really good combo card, and it works as a pseudo shield, and it's a very powerful pseudo shield in combination with Mukuro. 4 is a bit cloggy though, because you only do get the 1 call every battle, and the one problem this deck has is it's partially slow if you don't establish a board quickly. Hot Spicy Dark Hero Tech. 3 first Dark Hero Hideout. You play 3 because you want to see it. You only need the 1. Can't do anything about that. That's Buddy Fight. 3 Dark Hero Hideout. The second, why these 2 cards exist together escapes me, because this becomes utterly broken the minute this comes out. Well, the minute this came out, and it was like, why? Why? It's so good because both of these things specify once per turn. Both these Dark Hero Hideouts, they both activate during either player's turn once per turn. So because of the fact that this card lets you counter call during both players when they enter battle phase, you call a Dark Hero. You draw 1, charge 1, gain a life for each of these second hideouts. And second hideout is not exclusive to one set. So you can have all 3 on the board, and basically you can call a Dark Hero, charge 3, gain 3 life. And it also has a secondary effect, which is passive, where it's your Dark Hero item that you have equipped cannot be destroyed or returned to hand by your opponent's card effects, and it gives it +2 power, +2 defense for each hideout. So this is a thing. It's a very stupid thing, which is another reason why these 2 cards should not have existed together at all. Yeah, your Mukuro tops out at 12 to 11 if you don't play the 4th one, and you gain gauge and life like a madman. Like, I almost decked out because I was over-gauging with this in the initial early testing runs because I didn't know the potential of the deck and I was trying to feel it out. But yeah, it's a very likely thing that can happen. That's why I said the deck has a lot of life gain and has a lot of immediate engage between this and benefit, which lets us play some of this nice hot spicy tech that I like to say is one of the best cards in the game. 2 time sales. So essentially, when you pull this off and you call your SD Shores, you charge 1, gain a life. That's half of a time sale on turn 1, which is pretty ridiculous. So like you can afford to play 2 of these, and if you have 2 of these out on the board, then it's just a free time sale at that point, and you ask your opponent what they're gonna do about it. Time Sale's a really strong card. I think it's one of the strongest draw cards in the game. It's technically Pot of Greed in my opinion, even though when you math it out using soft advantage, it's a -1. But the thing is, the 2 cards it gives you helps you dig for the Mukuro as fast as possible, and it gives you some strong advantage, and it's never technically dead in this deck. 2 is enough because it's cloggy, and there's also not a lot of space in here. I actually had to ramp the deck up to 52 cards just to make room for the impact. You could take out the Inverzion quite literally and you'd be fine, but I want to try it out. I need to do a little more testing with it, but I want to try it out more with the 52 cards because I feel like this deck has a lot of filtering between like the Dark Hero Hideout number 1 and the time sales and the Omnilord spells we're getting. 2. I'm sorry. But yeah, time sale is a very powerful card. If you're losing, it's free. like if you're at 3 life, which happens sometimes, you know, it turns into a free card, but it's usually free cost, or like half of it's paid off. And because half of it's already covered by your Dark Hero Hideout number 2, there's no reason for you not to commit to playing it when you have the chance, really. There's only like a few situations where I don't play it right away when I have it, but that's few and far. You learn by playing. My personal experience may not result in what you want to do with the deck. Spicy tech. 2 Emblem of the Omnilords. This is essential for the deck. Just put up the other 3 spells here, and it's 3 resonance. I think 3 and 2 is the perfect mix. Emblem is essential because it's 2 gauge to search a Mukuro or another Omnilord, so you could actually search out your other win condition, like your Ziyun or your Miseria, or even the Tenbu or whatever, which is why it's really good. It's 2 gauge, and you could also pseudo shield with it, 2 gauge to rest the size 2 or lower monster on your opponent's field. You never know. I've never had to use the rest effect yet. I basically just use it for searching Mukuro because like I always have to go, you have to have him turn 1 or turn 2 at the latest, yada yada yada. 3 of these because when I played 4, they clog. They clogged really bad. For those of you who don't know what this does, it's check the top 5, put up to 2 Omnilords into your hand from there, and put up to 3 from there into the drop zone. You can choose. And then you put the rest on the bottom of your deck. This is free advantage if you end up drawing really well off of it. Otherwise, you kind of just wash. But really, it's just to help dig for Mukuro. It's free cost, which is what's really nice about it, because this is 2 gauge. But this has a lot more solidity. I just like the ratio that it has, because like this clogs, this doesn't clog at 2. And usually when you see the 1, you're either searching the Mukuro or searching a win condition for the game at that point. And you're just like, okay, cool, I can afford to do it because the deck has so much charge and draw potential. Yeah, there's basically the deck list. I'm not going to go into side, but I will go into a combo or 2 if you guys are really interested in, you know, seeing the stupidity I do with this. It's a lot of just having counter calls active, because like the Mukuro is really intimidating, and when you have Dark Hero Hideout 2, it's technically invincible, question mark. The reason why I play Zyogres again is because you can make small, stupid power boards where you can just go, hey look, here's him, here, these are in soul. Right, you attack, he bounces, these get sent, they call themselves, and they can also call themselves during the opponent's turn. Like if you put it in the soul of, let's say, you know, a monster, like if I did that, your opponent attacks into the Ziyun, he procs, the Dark Hero Hideouts proc. It's just a bunch of passive advantage that the deck likes to gain and the deck works off of. A lot of people, here we go, this is my little debate here. A lot of people prefer or only know of the Dungeon World 1 Omni build, and I'm saying that basically the Hero World 1 exists because it's a very powerful build, and basically why it's, in my eyes, superior is because you have access to more grindy, more passive advantage basically throughout the hideouts, and having access to the 4 Mukuro. So, yeah, you can play one of him. You can play one of him in dungeon. Okay, that's cool. And you can play El Quixote, which gives you gauge for days, but, you know, I have this, which lets me gauge for days, and I have Schwarza lets me gauge for days, and then, you guys may have 4 Miserias. Like, you have access to 4 Miserias, but having access to 4 Mukuros allows so much more plays because you have less dead cards sitting in your hand. So you could have Miserias in Dungeon World, but you'd have like 3 different Omnilords, and let's say there's the Ziyuns and the Tenbus and the Omnidais. He lets you call all of them out for free advantage, literally. Like, it's a very, very strong, very powerful combo. This card does not need to exist. These cards don't need to exist together. I'm very upset at that, but I'm very happy at the same time. But yeah, that's my opinion on it. The hideouts, basically, they infuriate people because, you know, if you only have one of each out and you have Mukuro, you could basically stretch it where you go call 1 during, you know, call, charge, draw, gain a life, charge, draw, gain a life, charge, draw, gain a life, or charge 2, gain 2 life, draw card, etc., etc. It ramps. it escalates. So yeah, there's a quick rundown of my build. No offense to anybody out there, you play what you like. I just, like I said, do things for the sake of doing things. Do I have anything else to say? I mean, from here on out in these videos, I guess you'll be seeing a lot of MHX over here. As you can see, she's just my new thing right now. I don't have a life counter yet. I am working on making that. Don't forget, guys, I do commissions. I have some recently posted ones. Hopefully you'll see them made into flags sometime soon. Shameless self-plug. But yeah, I think that's everything. Alright. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye!